live on a Friday. Who all's here already? We had unfinished project in here at 9:59 a.m. The one-eyed cat for Zell Racing. Mostly old parts. Ron Ward was checking in earlier. He's in the studio tonight. Dean Stevenson from the other side of the planet. Lars puts up a link. Says, find Mr. Ron Ward, the voice of the annual No Name Nationals here. And there's a link to your channel. 38 Racing, my Aunt Nancy. Jack Stands and Cinder Blocks. He said, just got here, and I can't say, what did I miss? Well, I mean, it hadn't started yet, man. I don't know how you missed anything. Buff Del Campo is here. Turbo Tom. Well, Turbo Tom there is going to be our pace car for the cruise to Lambert's this year. He's going to fix any of our problems with getting out of line on our cruise. Blue Grit Garage, 6th Street Garage, Lunar Outlaw, Mr. Carb Buddy himself. Danny Boyd, Pure Pontiac Garage is here, calling Tebow, a.k.a. Mama M to the third power. Wrong English. Howdy. Dust Devil Garage Brian, glad you're here. So tonight in the house, we have Mr. Ron Ward. And tonight, thought we'd do something a little bit different. You guys have all heard him from the tower at the No Name Nationals, or if you've been to some other assorted events, because he is a veteran announcer, to say the least. Been doing this a very long time, and we're very fortunate to have him as the voice of the No Name Nationals. But I wanted to get him in the studio tonight and talk a little bit about his long and storied career and everything. And who is Ron Ward? You've all heard him calling from the tower. You've heard him talking about your run, whether it was good or whether it was bad, and telling it like it is, whether it blew up or whether it was victorious, whatever. But we have him here tonight. So howdy, Mr. Ron Ward. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, John. Thanks for having me tonight. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, this is great. We've got No Name Contender Lone Wrench Garage here. Matthew, glad you all could be here. Slant Daily Garage Professor P says, I will be lurking in the garage. It's a good place to lurk.
He lurks well.
He does. He lurks well. That is correct. Well, we've got some show and tell tonight, some various pictures and things. We wanted to have Ron in here because, it's one thing to hear somebody doing their thing from the tower, or you see them, like you see me 2 hours a week here doing this. And, we see 38 Racing with his 59 Chevrolets there at Sykeston. But, there's a lot more to all the people in our community than just this little tiny snapshot we see on YouTube. And I thought Ron Ward is a very interesting guy. We should have him on here to talk about some of these things from his long career. I mean, so first of all, tell the folks who don't know, what area are you out of? Like, where are you out of?
I live in Topeka, Kansas. Born and pretty much raised here. Did a short stint in Kansas City, another one in Manhattan, Kansas, another couple of years in Omaha, Chicago. But I've been in Topeka now for, since 1969.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's been a while. I mean, I'm an old fart, so yeah.
So that's your home.
That's where I live. We are doing better here in Topeka than other parts of the world. Other than my surrounding neighborhood, which
Talk about your neighborhood this week.
We did talk about it, and we play that game all the time. Was it gunshots or fireworks? So,
right. Did you literally have shots in your neighborhood while we were doing the test for this live? I think you did, didn't you?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We did.
Just to the north of me. It's an ongoing thing. When I moved in here in 2004, it was real bad. It's gotten better, but it was real bad. In the first 10 years I lived here, there were 14 homicides or attempted homicides within 750 feet of my front door.
Oh, my gosh.
It felt like Detroit or Chicago.
Wow.
But, what has happened is the real estate market in Topeka has shifted, and there's a lot more people who own their homes in this neighborhood now than are renting homes. And
That's good.
the low dollar rental places seem to be, uh, you know, attractants to those who like to fire firearms illegally. So,
But when they get bought up and people live there as owner occupants, that tends to change.
oh, and the neighborhood has improved drastically, and my property taxes have gone up, accordingly. But
Match.
it's getting better. It's a double edged sword. I kind of liked the affordability when I moved in, and I'm kind of liking the fact that I don't have to worry about somebody, you know, coming up in my driveway with a gun anymore. So, well, not as much anyway. It's still just to the north and just to the south, about 2 blocks either direction is rough. Right here, along the street I live on, it's not bad. People are actually remodeling their homes and it doing some great landscaping and yard work. It's so,
Cool.
a little pride in your home goes a long way for the neighborhood. And once Billy Joe Jim Bob down the street dresses his place up, well, gosh, I got to follow suit too, and it just, it's like cars, once you go to a show or a meet or a drag race or something along those lines, you look at your old beater and it's like, yeah, what can I do to fix it up so people would take notice of it?
Peer pressure.
Uh, I don't know that it's peer pressure. It's more realizing, hey, I could do something fun with this. If I did what my friends told me to do with my car, it'd be done by now.
Right. But it also would start decaying because once it's done,
Right.
it's done. And that's kind of not a good thing.
Yeah, mine's a work in progress and has been since 1986. So
Yeah.
we're getting
That's
there.
the way it should be.
At least it has some new sheet metal in it. Hopefully, I'll get around to put the rest. I've got all that stuff down in my basement in boxes from Auto Metal Direct, and I got to finish up the other project in my garage before mine takes front and center. And I just working 6 days a week. I come home and I'm tired, and on Sundays I have absolutely no motivation to do anything except watch disc golf.
You watch disc golf. That's what you do on Sundays.
I do. I watch the Disc Golf Network, or I go out and I
There's a disc golf network.
absolutely. You're
I
not
had
aware of
no
this?
clue.
Oh, come on, John.
Tell me about this whole universe that I've never heard of. There's a disc golf network. I've got to know now.
Disc golf is, and I don't care what they say about pickleball. Disc golf is the fastest growing sport in the world.
Huh.
In the world, and they still won't feature it on ESPN.
Huh.
I don't get it. I mean, you can watch pickleball, you can watch cornhole on ESPN,
Yeah.
ESPN 6 or 7 or 9 or the Ocho, I guess is what they call the one now. But disc golf, to me, it's not about being competitive with the other people. It's about going out and doing better than I did last time. And I still get a kick out of watching the flight path of the disc after it leaves my hand. They will do some really crazy stuff. They go up and down and left and right, and if you choose the right disc for the right circumstance, you can get it to do exactly what you want. And it's a whole lot cheaper than traditional stick and ball golf. You don't have to rent a golf cart. See, Dan knows what's up. Disc golf is fun. And I started playing about 20 years ago. And just last year, got my first hole in one.
Huh.
And my son has dozens of them. And all my buddies are, they have, when, when you get an ace, that's what they call it, an ace. Everybody who's with you signs your disc. I only have one disc that's been signed. So, yeah,
If you would have told me earlier today or any time that we will be talking about disc golf right now, I would never have won that bet.
my life is multifaceted.
Indeed, indeed. Well, that's why you're here. This is cool stuff. This is neat. So, is there any video of you playing disc golf or calling disc golf, like calling
Uh,
a match?
I have. It should have been my first ace. My son actually posted the video up on his YouTube. Um, I, we were playing in Lawrence, Kansas at Centennial Park, hole number 11. And for any of you who play disc golf and know where that is, you know it's the tunnel hole. And it's a tunnel through a grove of trees. And on the backside of that, there's about 100 feet to the basket. And we were playing in the Midwest Amateur Starter Pack Invitational Challenge, what we call the Mass Pick. And we went to Walmart and grabbed all the Innova starter packs we could and dished them out. And we put a number on each one of the boxes because if you open the box, you can determine, oh, this disc is going to work well for me or not. But we drew lots on the boxes before we teed off on the first hole, and everybody got a brand new starter pack from Innova. And they were 3 really cheap, flimsy. These are not what seasoned disc golf players are used to throwing. So it basically like throwing a paper plate, okay? So it was
Right.
fun. It was a lot of fun because we could only play with those 3 discs that were in the starter pack, and had to leave our bags in our cars, and just carry the 3 discs. Yeah, Dan, disc golfers well. They like to catch a buzz. But yes, disc golf is like with a frisbee, Mexican spec. Um, anyway, so we had no idea what these discs were going to do. We'd never thrown them before, and it was a challenge. I ended up winning the first Mass Pick challenge, and nearly had an ace with a disc that I'd never thrown before. But yeah, it's something else. My buddy Weston, you can hear him on the video. Oh, oh, oh! It's in! It's in! And it bounced off the top of the basket, came down, hit the rim of the basket, and landed on the ground. It was that close.
Denied.
Yeah, a little wind from the west would have put it right in there. But anyway, but yeah, I enjoy doing it.
This is a
Uh,
good question here because I can tell you my dog will be trying to catch those things.
so, next respect in Kansas, or at least at the parks I play at, there's a leash law. And if the dogs aren't on a leash, we politely ask the owners to remove them from the course. And if they don't do that, then we play a hole where they are not with their dog. But no, I haven't had any problems with dogs chasing my discs. Um, it, it, I can see where it'd be an issue. My dog knows better. Yeah, Benji, I've got 3 disc golf baskets. Yeah, there's Benji. I got 3 disc golf baskets in the yard, and I putt from one basket to the next just to kind of keep sharp on it, right? And I gave him his own disc. He can chew on it all he wants, but he knows better than to touch mine. All I have to do is say no, and he'll give me a little frown, like, "Oh, I want to play with the frisbee." But nope, he'll leave him alone. He does real well. Does real well.
The comments are always great. If they're not a leash, they must be squatters, and his dogs are too lazy to chase anything. I thought this was good. He's talking about a basket 4 feet off the ground. That would not stop mine. He'd still get that disc. Oh man, good stuff. So you've been playing for 20 years, you say, right?
Been playing for 20 years.
Where? What
I've
all
only won
courses
2
you played on?
tournaments in my entire life, so
Huh?
I'm middle of the pack with the group that I play with. So my son is light years ahead of me. He played professionally for a couple of years when he lived out in Colorado, and he's just absolutely amazing. He's also, 32 and I'm 60. So
Now, did you send a picture of him?
I did on both my kids.
Right. That's what I was going to say. These
That's
folks
my
here, tell us about them.
Uh, Jordan is the oldest, and she came along in 1989, and John showed up in 1991, and they are absolutely my pride and joy. I love my kids. We're here at Flying H Drag Strip. That's where the picture was taken, on top of the tower, and I had to work there on Father's Day. So they came out, actually brought me an ice cream cake. Okay, Jordan got the ice cream cake up in there. That's my daughter, and my son is Jonathan, and brought it up to the tower and celebrated Father's Day with me at Flying Ace Drag Strip, and that was a lot of fun. God, I love those kids.
What a great way to celebrate a Father's Day.
Yeah, and
How
the
cool is
weather
that?
was absolutely perfect. You can see, partly cloudy and lots of smiles.
Now, I thought these pictures were interesting. I'm going to bring up a couple of them here. This one,
Oh, I also play guitar.
and then this one here, this action shot.
That
You
was
got to tell us about this.
that was one of my favorite live venues. Every Thursday night, we'd have a jam session. Okay, and this was a place called the Lazy Toad. And I'm sorry, this was Bullfrogs Live, not the Lazy Toad. But this was Bullfrogs Live, and Topeka has a huge music scene. And pre-COVID, there would be anywhere from 4 to 6 jam sessions every week, and everybody was welcome to attend. It didn't matter what you played, whether it was rock or country or blues or bluegrass or anything. Okay, there would be somebody else there to play with you with that genre of music. And with me, I love blues. I love classic rock. I like classic country. Um, right there, I was just jamming on some ZZ Top, so it was uh, a good time. But yeah, I've played several venues around here. Like I said, pre-COVID. Since then, there's maybe 1 or 2 jam sessions a week, and I've attended, but I haven't played with these guys. That is not a CBS Stratocaster, Dan. That is, in fact, a a deluxe powerhouse Strat from 1996. It's got active pickups in it, and it absolutely screams. I love that guitar.
And how long have you been playing?
Since I was about 5 years old.
5 years. Wow,
Yeah,
that's cool.
yep.
So who are your influences that you would say, man, I like taking stuff from this guy and this guy? Who would you say?
Joe Walsh.
Okay.
Joe Walsh, absolutely incredible guitarist, and he's got, how many songs can you say he's got a riff you will remember forever? You got Rocky Mountain Way, and you got Funk 49. He just does it right. He does it right. And when he played with the Eagle, he was the only cool Eagle. The rest of them were, pretty much caught up in themselves. But Joe was just Joe, and he always will be. Will be. He's also from Kansas. He was born in Wichita, just about an hour and a half south of here. So yeah, he is absolutely number one on my list. Behind him, Billy Gibbons, another great guitarist, great at the blues, great at rock and roll, can even do some country riffs from time to time, and a lot of respect for him. And I've played many ZZ Top songs in my life, so that would be the two that really influenced me.
Danny Boyd says Joe is too cool for the Eagles. We've got Buff's Garage in the house. Howdy.
Howdy, Buff.
We have Levi here.
Levi's here. Let, I'm gonna turn the subject over to Dylan real quick. Okay,
Yeah.
real quick. This guy, although I like to make fun of him because he's unorthodox in his approach to hot rodding. I appreciate that because I used to be unorthodox too. He's done frying chicken and fries. Oh, good. Load up on some carbohydrates and fried foods. Oh yeah. Anyway, Dylan, just wanted to give a shout out to you. If I had your energy and my experience, I'd conquer the world. You
Yeah.
have more energy to work on your stuff than anybody I've ever met in my life. And that, sir, I give that out as a compliment.
Yep.
And as you grow and learn and kind of find your way around working on these cars for several more years, I hope healthily, you're going to be fantastic, man. Just keep doing
Yeah.
what you're doing. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're learning and you're having fun, and we appreciate it.
He has a lot of potential, especially when you consider he's only, what, 24 years old?
Right?
I mean, only 24, 25, something like that.
Well,
It's
you
pretty
know,
impressive.
and his lady is the most supportive person I've ever.
Indeed. Indeed.
She's
Yes.
got his back in any circumstance.
Brooke is a keeper.
And she might laugh at him, as will the rest of us,
As
because
we do too.
he's done something funny. But that's a good couple right there. That's a real
Yeah.
good couple. They're doing fantastic.
I don't know anyone who doesn't like Levi. I mean, we all have fun, but I mean, I don't know anyone who doesn't. I mean, we all like and respect him, so he's definitely a good member of the community and our ecosystem.
I just want to see that car make a clean pass.
It's going to. It's coming. It's
I,
coming. I predicted Sykeston this year.
he has
I
put
predicted Sykeston. He's going to run 5.99 or better at
he,
Sykeston, but probably only once. That's my guess.
he's put so much work into it. Literal blood, sweat, and tears. I know he has. And the tears were probably from the sweat dripping in his eyes. But you know, seriously, I would have a hard time recognizing him if he ever got out from under the car.
Yeah.
I can tell you what kind of sneakers he wears.
Yeah, right.
His legs are always sticking out. But anyway. But yeah, Dylan, I told you I'd give you a shout, and there it is, bud. If you have any questions, comments, whatever, let us know. But man, we love having you as part of the No Name Nationals community.
Agreed. Agreed. Matthew has a question. What kind of amps do you use? Do you like valves or solid state?
I have one solid state amp. It's a little itty bitty teeny tiny peavy that runs on batteries. I can pack 8 D cells in it, throw it in the back of the Roadrunner, take it out to wherever we're camping or hanging out at the lake or whatever, and I can plug into it. That's the only solid state that I have. I have a crate that's a solid that is a 15 watt all tube, and I have a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe, which is an absolute screamer. That thing, it's only 40 watts, but it's all tube, and the neighbors 3 blocks away will hear me when I turn it up to about 6. If I go to 10, I'm blowing plaster off the walls, and I'm not kidding. I live in a laughing plaster house. I cannot crank it up in here because it'll cause cracks.
Levi has a question for you. What made you a Mopar guy?
Oh, all right. My dad was a Chevy guy. My Uncle Lee was a Ford guy, and my Uncle Dave was a Ford guy. And I had to listen to that. We'd get together. Dave played the banjo, Lee played the ukulele, Dad played the guitar, and I played the guitar. And we'd have like a Saturday night jam session at the house. And those guys all played bluegrass, and that's what I cut my teeth on. And if you can play bluegrass, you can pretty much play anything. But that's where I learned. But in between songs and my dad and my uncles drinking beers, they'd start bagging on each other's vehicles. Dad would bag on the Fords, and Lee and Dave would bag on the Chevys, and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Well, my very first car was actually a Volkswagen Beetle. Okay, a 66 air-cooled Volkswagen Beetle.
Nice.
My dad passed away when I was 12 years old, so I never got to really, I didn't get to have the quality time in the garage that I wanted to with my dad. However, he was in the middle of a project. He had a 1954 Morgan +4 drop dead coupe that was in the garage, and he worked on it as time allowed. And I'd go out and tinker with him and, kind of toy around with that. Well, when I turned 16, my dad had passed 4 years prior. I made a promise to my mom. Mom, I'm going to get that thing running. And between me and my buddy John, it took us about 3 weeks, because have you ever worked with SU carburetors?
With what carburetors?
SU. They're British carburetors. They're a slide
No,
valve carburetor. Uh,
no.
this thing had the same engine like a Triumph TR2 would. Had a Moss 4-speed gearbox. It had a wood body frame, and the body frame was rotten. Kind of like the 34, 35 Chevys. You give it enough time, and they just start to rot. But anyway, back to my story. We got this thing up and running. The rear brake line, the steel line that runs across the rear axle, had rotted out. So I got a pair of vice grips and I crimped down on the rubber line. Front brakes worked just fine. I fired it up. John hopped in the passenger seat, and this thing had not been on the road since my dad lived in Chicago back in '69. Okay.
Okay.
We fired this up in 1981. That's how long it sat. Put fresh fuel in it. I cleaned out the carburetors, cleaned up the points, adjusted the points on the thing. We fired it up, put some antifreeze in it, and at the time we lived in a fairly affluent neighborhood that had roundabouts, right? And cobblestone streets. John and I go out. We're tearing around those roundabouts. Get back. My mom is standing in the front yard, and she didn't know whether to shit or shine her shoes. She was laughing, and then she tried to get angry. And then she laughed, and she tried to get angry. She couldn't stay angry. I got the thing running. Mom was just tickled pink, but we took it out. No, I just barely had a driver's license. It had no insurance, no tags, nothing like that. But you got two teenage kids out tooling around in a 1954 Morgan Plus 4 drop head coupe. It was a blast.
Love it.
And when we got done, Mom took the keys, and I never saw him again until she sold the car.
Man.
She didn't want me out driving the damn thing around.
Now, T mentions, he says, my first car was a 64 Beetle, and I also found Mopar was the only way. I like Volkswagens, the air-cooled stuff. Always have, ever since I was a little kid.
I'm sorry, I got sidetracked with the Morgan.
No, this is your show. Sidetrack's what it's about.
When I had the Beetle, we used to cruise Topeka Boulevard, and that was Topeka Boulevard was huge. It was number 2 in the nation behind Van Nuys Boulevard as far as activity. Every Friday, Saturday night, a lot of Wednesday nights, people out there. This place was packed. I mean, thousands, if not tens of thousands of cars up and down the strip in Topeka between 29th Street and 37th Street. They had a great big shopping mall there that, of course, shut down at 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening, and everybody would just fill that parking lot. And then at the other end on 29th Street, there was another big, it wasn't a mall, it was more of a shopping center, and that place would be packed. And everything you could ever think of was cruise up and down Topeka Boulevard. Well, I cruised with my 64 Beetle, and met a friend of mine who ended up being the best man at my wedding. He had a 64 Bug. His was a Baja, and mine was not. Mine was kind of a fat fender.
Right.
We had G50 15s on the back of it. It was a pretty slick little car.
Yeah.
But anyway, he ended up buying a 70 Roadrunner and brought it out and was tinkering with it. And I was going to school at Kansas State University over in Manhattan at the time and working part-time at a local Greenlight auto parts store. Remember Greenlight?
We didn't have them here.
Really? You never had Greenlight?
Nope. Not
Okay.
here.
Anyhow, this was a place that still had the old glass countertop, and they'd slid, like advertisements for Wix filters or, Champion spark plugs or whatever underneath the glass, so the guys didn't get their greasy fingerprints on it.
Smart.
Well, I slid an advertisement in there, wanted 68 to 70 Mopar B body, and a fella came in and says, "Hey, there's one just over there in Wamego. Wamego's about 15 minutes from Manhattan." And I'm like, "Really?" "Yeah, the guy only wants $350 for it." I said,
What year was this?
1986.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And I said, okay, I'll go over and check it out. So he gave me the guy's phone number. I called him, and it had been in a barn since 1976, and the Rodents had had their way with everything. But it was a 383 4-speed bench seat car.
Nice.
And I tried to talk him down. He says, no, the 4-speed transmission's worth at least $350. I said, okay. So I called my buddy Jay, and Jay also had a Volkswagen. He had I think his was a 69, bright yellow Baja. It was a great looking car. But he also had a Toyota Hilux pickup truck
Mm-hmm.
and a trailer.
Yeah.
And we towed that thing from Wamego all the way to Topeka on a single axle car trailer with
Wow.
a 4-cylinder pickup truck.
And he's pulling that with a Hilux.
With a Hilux, okay?
How did he stop?
We gave it a lot of, it was a manual transmission, so that helped. It,
Oh my gosh.
got a little engine braking going on there.
Oh, that'd be so
Got it
scary.
home, dropped it off. I was living, excuse me, I was living with my parents at the time. Well, my mom and my stepfather, and dropped it in the driveway, and Mom said, oh, you need to get that out of here. I said, I'll have it running in 2 weeks, and I did. The motor was completely locked up. When I bought the car, the hood was missing, the grill was missing, the around the headlights, the trim around the headlights was missing, the front bumper was gone, the bumper brackets were gone, all of that missing in action, right? So, friend of mine in Manhattan had a line on some parts, so I went up and got everything except the hood out of Manhattan, and the engine had set without a carburetor on it for so long, and the roof leaked in the barn where it was stored, and the water got down in the motor, and all 8 pistons were just frozen into the bores. Well, I was working part-time at a place called the Rod Shop. During the summers, I'd come back and work at the Rod Shop, and then I'd go back to school in the fall. I found a 400 block and realized that the 383 crank out of the motor that was locked up would go right into the 400. No problem whatsoever. I was able to basically cut all the connecting rods out of the 383, salvage the crank. It was in perfect shape. There wasn't a speck on the crankshaft. And it was also drilled for a 4-speed. So I put together, in fact, excuse me, the cylinder heads that are on Gladys now are original to her. When I was at the Rod Shop, I went ahead and cut the exhaust seats and put in, hardened seats for the 906 heads. I honed out the 400 to where it was kind of round. Okay.
All right.
I re-rang the stock 400 pistons, put a fresh set of 906 heads on it. The first camshaft that was in it was actually a Rhodes cam and lifter set for a big block Mopar.
Yeah.
I don't know. This has been a while, and some of you younger
That's
folks,
an old brand.
the Rhodes variable lifters. They had a hole in the side of them, and they would bleed off pressure or oil at lower RPMs, and at higher RPMs they didn't have time to bleed off, so they gave you full lift. What that did was allowed for a very high vacuum signal at idle, and cars with power brakes would really benefit from a set of Rhodes lifters. It worked out real well, and that thing was torquey. Oh man, was it torquey for a 400. Typically when you build a 400, you build to wing it up because you've got a bore the size of a coffee can and a relatively short stroke, and you don't make any power unless you rev them up, kind of like a 383 except on steroids. Well, this thing with that camshaft, man, it had loads of torque. That thing would run mid to high 13s with a 400 in it on street radials. I had BF Goodrich TA radials on it. Mid to high 13s at 101 mile an hour, and not too bad for 4 speed. Yeah, fun car. But anyway, that's what got me hooked on Mopars. And when I started driving that, and my buddy Alan, he had his 70. All the rest of the Mopar guys that were out there on Topeka Boulevard, I mean, hundreds would just gather in one spot, and we'd all just kind of shoot the breeze. My buddy Tony Hempel and Steve Leary, and gosh, all these guys that I have known since the 80s. Mike Crow, who else was driving Mopars back then? Darren Smock, Royce Fox. Royce had a badass 70 Challenger. He saw how well my 400 ran and decided, I'm going to go fast. And he put a huge nitrous kit. This is back when the Cheater was like the thing to go with.
Yeah.
He put a 250 horse shot on that thing and went running with it. I poured and polished a set of heads for him, and he ended up putting that thing in the 8s back in 87 or 88.
Wow.
So yeah, that car was featured for the first year Pro Media put together the Pro Fastest Streetcar Series before they bought out the NMCA, and he was featured on their flyer for the series. And he never competed in one of their races, but his car's there. But yeah, Royce is living up in North Dakota now, or South Dakota. I don't know. He's a mechanic in one of the oil fields up there. But I miss him. A lot of fun to hang out with. Man, I met so many good people just cruising the boulevard. And, it was a shame in the late 80s, early 90s, they had to shut it all down because there were too many fights. People were getting shot. People were leaving trash laying around. They no longer respected those around them or the businesses in whose parking lot they were parking. But, man, there were some cool cars back then. But that's what got me hooked on Mopars, that and the fact that all these guys just kind of became my friends, and they've all got Mopars. So that's what I've kind of done. I make my living fixing Chevys and Fords, and I have fun with Mopars.
A lot of my friends are Ford people. That's just kind of how it works out. So what's the other makes, and what are the other weird cars people might not guess Ron Ward is into? Because we associate you with Gladys and Mopars, but what would be something that you like that people say, I would never thought Ron Ward would be into that?
I still have a passion for air-cooled VWs. I love it. And, in this day and age, when cars are getting so difficult to work on as a consumer, you have to take them to a dealer for everything, and everything is always going wrong. How many times have, body control modules and ECMs and everything goes bad on these things because they're just so computerized. They're made so people can't work on them. What is the most common vehicle in the world? The Volkswagen Beetle, the air-cooled Volkswagen Beetle. They sold more of those than all other brands combined. It's just amazing. And they made them clear up into the 90s, I think, down in Mexico and Brazil.
Yeah.
So amazing aftermarket support, and they're as simple as a sewing machine to work on. You can have the motor out in 30 minutes and put a clutch in it, put it back in, and be on the road in less than an hour.
Technically, if you're on the clock, my lab partner and I at New River Community College did it in 17. We were just taking it out, roll it out of the car, and back in to see if we could do it for time. We did it in 17 in his 66 Beetle.
Were there any bolts left over?
No, we didn't. We even put the heater boxes back. But we had our tools laid out, and one of us was the diver, underneath, and one of us running from the top. And
well, they're light. They get great and they're all antiques now, so insurance is going to be cheap. I look for a big rush in, what's that?
I knew that. The Toyota Corolla passed the VW Beetle, but yeah. But the VW Beetle was number one for a long time. They had gotten over 20 million.
All right, Mexican
in the 90s.
Can you take the engine out of a 2025 Corolla and put it in a 1975 Corolla? No. But you can take an engine out of a 1996 VW Beetle and put it in a 1953 VW Beetle. It'll bolt right in, other than you're going to have to change the flywheel to accommodate for the 6-volt starter.
Mexican Spec always likes to find the exception to everything.
Yeah,
Just very,
I'm
but
I'm gonna stand firm on the VW Beetle. It
yeah.
has more it has more interchangeable parts than a small block Chevy, that's for sure.
At one time, the Model T Ford had the highest production run, and the Beetle took it from the Model T Ford. And then the Toyota Corolla is number one now. The Ford F-150, I think, is somewhere between the Corolla and the Beetle. But yeah, there's been a few that have having massive production numbers. The Citroen, that car, has a lot too. Um, but yeah,
But the Beetle, the air-cooled Beetle, not the water-cooled one, it remained relatively unchanged throughout the course of its life. You know,
very close. Yeah,
they had some styling cues. They widened the body in '67, and they went to a McPherson strut front suspension with the Super Beetle, but it's basically unchanged
yeah.
since its inception.
It's definitely the least changed over that much time.
Yeah, and that's what makes owning one of those so attractive to me right now is parts availability. If I want to put a 1600 dual port in 1961, I sure can. It'll
Yeah,
bolt right in. Just put the right flywheel in, or
yep.
I can even put a transaxle out of a 67 to 61, a little more squish on the wheels, and it'll fit right in there. I love the interchangeability of these things. What I don't love is the fuse boxes. I actually welded a fuse to my finger with a VW Beetle. So,
Oh gosh.
oh,
Mexican specs said all the Mexican Beetles were regular Beetles with the torsion bar front end, I guess, until 2003. That's wild,
really?
which I really like. And the easy way to tell the Super Beetle, I think, weren't all the Super Beetles curved glass windshields and all the regular flat
Oh,
glass?
no,
That,
they actually made, I believe, 71 was a flat windshield Super Beetle, but all of them below the front bumper, every Super Beetle ever made had that vent that went right under the front bumper, the vertical vent or
mhm,
louvers or whatever you want to
right.
call it there. Only the Super Beetles had those.
Hmm. I can tell most of them apart by year, actually, because I love those cars.
Yeah. Mine was a 66. It was the first year they put cam bearings in the motor. 65 and prior, the cam ran directly on the case halves.
Yep.
So that made mine a really good choice. I was working at the rod shop when I had it and had some problems with the motor. I took a trip way out to western Kansas and came back, and it was rattling around pretty good. So split the case halves and tore everything apart. Well, this is back when TRW, we were a TRW dealer at the rod shop, and they had a full line of Volkswagen parts. I got pistons and cylinders from a 1972 Type 3, which the 72 Type 3 had optional fuel injection. So I went for the fuel injection. They had a little higher compression, a little higher dome height. So I got a little more snort out of that. And TRW offered this, they had their full race cam. Believe it or not, I put a TRW full race cam in my Bug, and that thing ripped. It ran 840s in the eighth mile, so not too shabby.
No, that's moving for Beetle. Gosh, wow.
It was well. It had a 436 ring and pinion from the
Yep.
factory, so all you had to do was wing it up and sidestep the clutch. And the first 2 or 3 times I dumped the clutch, the front end would come up off the ground.
Yep.
Until the clutch got a little bit worn off of it. But probably in my younger years, that was the most fun car I had. It was just a blast.
I love it. I think those cars are fantastic, and the ones they'd race were just so lightweight too. We're talking 1,000-pound cars, just
Yeah,
incredibly light.
another car on my bucket list that I'd like to have is a Nissan 240Z. The first incarnation of the Z car. I'd like to have one, and if you can find one that's not rusted out, good luck. But I drove one. I worked part time at a used car lot back when I was a kid, detailing cars, and they had one that came in, and I said, "Oh, put a tag on. I want to go see if my mom will let me buy this." I drove it home. She goes, "Nope, absolutely not." But I wanted one. I've always wanted one. But yeah, uh, I enjoyed those cars, and that there's some other oddball stuff. And I like pretty much every Mopar except four-door Chargers. Sorry, it
Huh.
looks too much like a taxi cab or a police car for me.
I can go with that though.
I just that the 1970 Dodge, and I know I'm going to anger a lot of people here.
Go for it.
The 1970 Dodge Charger was the most hideous thing ever to come out in the muscle car area, and the only Charger uglier than that are the four doors. I like the 1979 Mitsubishi Chargers better than I like the 1970 Charger.
What is it you don't like about the
That
70?
hideous grill. Now the 70 Super Bee, with the vertical
Yeah.
split in the middle. Now I like that. And I really like the taillights. But the 70 Charger, no. Sorry.
Okay, so what is your favorite Charger?
67.
Okay.
67. 68 would be a close second. I love the
68's
I
mine.
love the round taillights on the 68. And I like the grill without the center post. It was a mean looking car. But the 67 with that fastback, and the 67 had better interior than the 66, and that continuous taillight across the back. Sexy.
A lot of times cars, they come up with their best idea first, and then as they try to tweak and make adjustments to it, sometimes it doesn't go well. Sometimes it does a little bit, but like I really like the 68 Roadrunner, and I like the 69, obviously. I have one. But I don't like when they continuously keep trying to make changes. Like I never personally liked the 70 Roadrunner. I never liked that transitional grill where they made the grill that went around, the 70 Roadrunner grill.
Right.
Then in 71, they got it right. It was like 71 was the idea they had in their mind, and 70 was like this evolutionary step to get there. And I always thought it looked really weird to me.
The 71 Roadrunner, I'm not a big NASCAR fan. I haven't been since they got rid of chrome bumpers. But the 71 Roadrunner or Satellite or whatever they wanted to call it that year for NASCAR use. Every time I think of vintage NASCAR, Richard Petty's 71 Roadrunner, that body style was just awesome. I loved it. There's nothing right about the 71 Roadrunner.
So says Mexican Spec.
Okay, well, see, I like the 70s, John. I'll differ with you on that. The 68, I'm kind of on the fence about it. I love the fact that it is as Spartan as you could get a muscle car.
Yeah.
It was stripped down to the bare bones. And if it wasn't for the sole purpose of making it go or making it stop, it was off, vinyl floor mats and all. I appreciate that day and age of muscle cars. The 69, I really like the grill and the taillights in that. They have, especially on the GTX, those deep sunk in, the GTX and the Sport Satellite had those recessed taillights. And I thought those were great looking. They also had a good looking grill in those. The 70s, man, I like those probably as well as the 69. I really do. They're, in my opinion, very sharp, especially with the air grabber hood on them. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, so first of all, I think all of them are cool, and all of them are much cooler than the transportation appliances of today. So
Right.
You can't really go wrong with any of those. So 1970, someone we mutually know said something that I agree with. These are, here and there. 70 is the peak, and I think the best cars are found 10 years on each side. So while there are things, yet to be evolved about the early 60s cars, I thought got much better as the decade went on. And there are things about the Malaise era that I thought had really jumped the shark. I still think 10 years on either side of 1970 is where you just found the coolest stuff, those 2 decades.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of my other favorite Mopars, I had a 1971 Dodge Demon. Picked it up for $400 at a used car lot in Topeka. Had a slant 6 in it. Got it home, and it felt funny. I lived like 20 miles away, And it felt funny on the ride home, so I popped the trunk, and the spare tire was floating in the spare tire well. It was full of water.
Oh my
Front
gosh.
seals leaked. Anyway, so that was my basic transportation for, oh gosh, a couple of years. And I took the Roadrunner off the road at the time. I was going to start doing body work on it back then. That would have been 1998. Okay. I took the motor out of the Roadrunner, and I'm thinking, it wouldn't take much to put that in that Demon. So I bought a set of 5205 headers. They're the 1 7/8 inch.
Hmm.
The fender well headers. I got a rear end out of a 66 Coronet. Now, for you who don't know, 66 and 67 8 3/4 out of a B body are actually just a skosh narrower than 68, 69, and 70.
Hmm.
And they made a perfect fit in the coupe style A bodies, which would be, your 67 through 69 Barracuda and your Demons and Dusters and Dart Sports. They bolt in. You have to move the spring perches in, of course, but you bolt in. I was running 15 by 10 inch tires on that, 15 by 10 inch wheels with 4 7/8 back spacing, and they fit right under the wheel wells. They have cavernous wheel wells on those things, and backed it up with a 727 and a healthy shot of nitrous. I had that entire car swapped and changed from a 6-cylinder to a 440 in one weekend, other than I needed to get a drive shaft built. So everything else was done and it was ready to go. So that week, when I went into work, a Perrine welding and machine was just right down the street from the rod shop. So I took the thing over. I pulled one out of a 1979 Plymouth extended van, one of those big 15-passenger vans, because it had the right size U-joints. I'm like, hey, this will work. Lop off what I don't need and have it, and they cut it and welded it for me, and it was perfect. It worked out great. And that was my hot rod. That's the fastest car I've ever owned, and it was a lot of fun.
Speaking of work,
Ha!
tell them what's up with this.
I was suiting up to spray epoxy. John, have you ever sprayed 2K epoxy?
No.
Yeah, it's angry stuff. You do not want it in your eyes. You do not want it in your lungs. You do not want it on your body. It will actually leach into your body and make you horribly sick.
Oh,
And it sticks to anything. So if it gets in your nose or in your lungs or whatever, you're going to have bronchial problems for a long, long time, if not forever. So anytime I shoot epoxy, that's what I look like.
so Ron sent me some pictures of stuff he was working on, and this is apparently what he does at work.
No, that's my car.
This is on Gladys.
Yeah. Oh, this is a good story. So one day, my son and I were just sitting here at the house, and he said, "What would it take to get the Roadrunner running again?" And it had, oh gosh, that would have been 9 years ago, and I've been here since 2004. And I said, I need to tear into that engine. I'll get back to that story here in a little bit. I thought I'd hurt the motor using too much nitrous on it in the Demon. I said, let's go tear that motor down and see what we got. And I pulled it apart. I thought I had run the thrust main bearing out of it when my torque converter expanded. I mean, it swelled up. We had to pry it out of the back of the crankshaft. And so I tore the crank out and looked at it, and I'm like, heck, there's no wear on the bearing. I checked the end plate. I hadn't worn the thrust off the crank. It was perfect. I'm like, let's put it back together and see what we can do. So over the next 3-4 weeks, John and I got the thing back together and running. And it had set since 1996, right? Or 1998. And this was 2017, 2016, right in there. And everything had rotted. All the rubber parts all needed replaced. I was going to do the steering and suspension and all that. Well, I went to hang new brake lines on it. And on Mopars, specifically the B body, there's a bracket that if you look where that where the center link is, if you go straight up from that on the frame rail, there's a bracket there for the brake line where it hooks up and goes to the rubber hose out to to the drum brakes, to the wheel cylinder. Well, I went to hook up my steel line to the rubber line, and the bracket fell off in my hand. It's supposed to be welded on. I'm like, great. So I get to picking around, and that whole frame rail is just full of rust on both the inside and the outside. Okay. So I cut it out, cut it out, cut it out, and just continued to work my way forward and back until I found an area that wasn't rotted out anymore. And there you have it. There's about 32 inches of frame rail right there that's missing after I cut everything out that I could and drilled out all the spot welds and all that. Crazy. The bottom side of the frame rail was still in good shape. It was just the vertical sides to the frame rails that had problems. So I went in there, cleaned it all up, hit it with some Oxfo to neutralize the rust, and then I went in and primed it with epoxy primer. And then, John, if you want to flip through, I made a...
I will. I'm going to come here and say hi to Barkley and Grand Pito Vic real quick. Howdy, gentlemen. J-Bo sneaked in here.
Hi, guys.
And...
yeah, so I made a pattern out of a big piece of poster board and laid it out on a piece of 14 gauge. I used to work in a sheet metal shop. And, well, actually, I still do. It's just a different shop. Anyway, I brought home some 14 gauge because that's what the front frame rails on the Mopars are made out of. Well, at least the early B bodies. And traced it out, cut it out, and laid it in there so that I didn't have any kind of a gap whatsoever around it. And welded it in. And I had to do the same thing on the inside of the frame rail. It was just on the passenger side. I imagine, most of the rust occurs on the passenger side because when you're parked at the curb, all the water runs towards the curb, and that's the downhill side, so it collects everything. But anyway, got it fixed up, and yeah, that's what I pulled out. That's what I pulled out. I can taste that from here.
Oh, I'll bet.
Mopar rust has a very acrid taste. Oh.
So there's a lot of other stuff in here that, you did some interesting stuff.
Yeah, that was my torsion bar cross member. That would be that's the driver's side. And it was rotted out on both sides, but
wow.
Here this was when I was working at the body shop down south of Topeka, and we had no way to form 14 gauge. So I had a buddy of mine who was working where I used to work at the sheet metal shop. I said, make me some panels out of 14 gauge. I need them 48 inches long. I need a 4-inch flange and a 2-inch flange, and I'll just cut what I need out of that. So basically, it's not angle iron, but it's the same idea. I just fabbed up stuff out of angle iron. John, do you have where I made the templates? Do you still have that picture?
I have that right here.
Yeah, poster board is your friend.
Cardboard aided design. That's CAD design.
Absolutely. So yeah, knowing I was going to be using sections of this angle that I had bent, I laid in this kind of design and I laid it over the damaged area so I knew I had all the form and fitment and all of that kind of stuff. Cut it out of cardboard, transferred it over to the 14 gauge angle, and just laid it out and cut it out and welded it up. And I had to do this on both sides of the cross member. Now, keep in mind, these cross members are available from AMD. They need a little bit of work to make them fit. They're not quite wide enough. They're about a 3/8 to 1/2 inch narrow, so you got to hammer the flanges down on the end and rebend them in the correct positions. But they cost $600. I've got about $35 in material here. So it was time, sure. But, that's what I do. I cut, I weld, I grind. Yeah, that's the frame rail after I got it welded back together. That bracket that's held on there by the clamps, that is the bump stop for the upper control arm. I had to weld it back on. I also had to weld the bump stop for the lower control arm back on. So I had to pull all that stuff off so I could access the rust in the frame rail.
It looks great.
It came out okay. It came out okay. Yeah, this was after I repaired that torsion bar cross member. AMD was they got me a new floor pan and new rear footwells. And my friend Michelle that worked with me at the paint shop, still my best friend. She's my diehard buddy. But she helped me drill all those plug weld holes and then weld them up and then grind them smooth. She was absolutely phenomenal to help me get that done. So she worked on one side and I worked on the other, and we just tag teamed it all the way down.
Now, I see some of these others I think are interesting.
Oh,
what's going on here?
That is my 60. Well, it was my 68 Sports Satellite wagon. And her name was Puff. Puff the Magic Wagon. And this thing, okay. I go to breakfast occasionally with a group of people. We call it Gearhead Church on Sunday mornings. Okay. Yep, there she is. And one of the guys from Gearhead Church was out doing some garage sales later after we got done having breakfast. He and his girlfriend. And I get a phone call. He's like, Ron, are you still looking for a rotisserie? Well, yeah. He says, I found one. I said, well, what's the guy want for it? He said, $900. I said, well, that's reasonable. And I was in the market for a rotisserie because I want to put Gladys on a rotisserie. He says, there's one catch. I said, what's that? He says, you have to take the car that's on it with it. I said, well, what is it? He said, you're not going to believe this. It's a 68 Sports Satellite wagon. I said, deal. I'll be right there.
Yeah.
So this is after it needed some welding done underneath. It had set in a field down in Texas. And granted, it was a Texas car. It didn't have a lot of rust. No rust in the outer body whatsoever. But underneath where it sat down in the weeds, there was some rust in the floor pans and whatnot. Thankfully, the guy that I got it from had repaired the majority of that already. He repaired the floor pan and the footwell area. I just had to go back behind the rear wheelhouses and clean all that up. And once I got it done on the rotisserie, cleaned up the whole bottom side, sprayed it with epoxy, and then I undercoated the whole bottom of it. You see it on that one pic of the rotisserie. But yeah, there went through and undercoated the whole doggone thing.
Isn't that the coolest? I mean, isn't that super cool?
Bring that picture back, John. I want to point something out.
Sure.
Okay. Those of you familiar with B-body wagons know where the spare tire well is. At the top there, just behind the rear wheel well. Notice it is not shaped like a bowl anymore to contain the spare tire. The spare tire, this was not one of the 9-passenger wagons, so the spare tire could be put in that spare tire well that you see there in the middle. And they used the same gas tank like a 67 or 66 B-body would that wrapped around the spare tire well. So the previous owner, the guy who did the rest of the repairs, hated the way that belly hung down there. He didn't like it at all. He wanted to clean up the
I've never liked it either.
So he cut it and capped it off. I'm like, great idea. Great idea. I mean, I still had room for a spare tire and all that. I never got to see this car through to fruition. I was in a bind and needed some money. So I ended up selling this for more than double what I paid for the rotisserie. But, the car came to me. Everything was cataloged, indexed, and put away in those really nice black totes with the yellow lids. There was a piece of cardboard taped to the top of each one of those that had a number on it and a description of what next to that number. And if you reached in and you grabbed the baggie out of there, say it was number 5, oh, these are the screws that hold the headlight trim in.
Mm-hmm.
He did that to whoever got this car and put it back together. Basically, it was just an erector set. Everything was already there, or Legos. All your instructions are right there in front of you. Everything. That was going to be an easy build for somebody, but I had to get rid of it. I had to, yeah. Sometimes life bites us in the butt. So I kind of wish I still had that one. Now that's my other 68 Sport Satellite. That's Georgia Satellite.
Georgia Satellite.
That car sat in a barn for 31 years. And a friend of mine, it was her husband's car, and he passed away, and the car didn't move after he died. And it sat in her brother's barn for, oh gosh. Let's see, when did I get Georgia? I think I got Georgia in 2017, and it sat there since 1983. So it was in pretty decent shape. It really needed a good scrubbing. This is after I got the engine all painted up and looking good and rebuilt the transmission. Every gasket, every seal, everything leaked on this car. So I pulled it all out and got it taken care of. Yeah, Dan, that's a Sports Satellite with column shift, bucket seats, and a buddy seat. And it was gold. The interior was gold.
318?
Yeah, it's a 318 car, Dan.
Love it.
Yeah,
it's a fun theme here. We'll show them this.
It was in really good shape. Yeah, that's when I pulled it out. So I didn't have any rust under the car. As you can tell, it had a nice coat of preservative on it. But yeah, the transmission started slipping on me, and come to find out, all the material off of the forward band was gone. So got it all taken care of.
How this does my heart good to see this clean, fresh 904 going into something.
Right. And attached to the motor. It's not that hard to do on these cars, John.
No.
Lift the whole thing out, put the whole thing back in.
Plenty of room.
Yep. Yeah, that's after a little scrub in there. It was a dirty girl when I got her. So anyhow, I used Castrol Super Clean and a scrub brush, and that's all it took to clean it up.
So tell them what you have for breakfast here.
Oh, high carb.
Yeah.
I absolutely love the 3310-1 carburetors. Not the 3310-2s or the -3s or -4s. I like the 780s. And they got the drop leg boosters. They've got power valves front and rear. They're great carburetors. Now, my second favorite carburetor is a thermoquad. And it used to be my favorite, but there's just something about, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but on Saturday mornings, if I'm not working out at the metal shop, I like to go out in the garage and tinker, just whatever. Well, this was one Saturday morning I went out and decided I was going to adjust the throttle, the accelerator pump on the carburetor because my throttle response was off a little bit. And it was weak. And I said, well, I'm going to have to go ahead and put a new diaphragm in the accelerator pump. I might as well go ahead and tear it down, clean everything up. And I have a huge fishing tackle box, filled with gaskets and seals and needles and seats and floats and whatever, O-rings, whatever you could possibly need to rebuild a Holly. And anytime somebody's got the stuff on sale, either on eBay or whatever, I buy all the genuine Holly parts because going with that off-brand crap just doesn't work real well in these things. But just take your time, make sure everything's clean, and put it back together. And these things will run forever. They really will. They're great. This particular one, I had to rebush the throttle shaft. I bought a kit off eBay that comes with a reamer and the bushings to redo the kit. It's kind of a booger bear getting the little plastic seals back in there after you put the bushings in. But after a little bit of poking and prodding and getting it right, it works. And that carburetor's still on Gladys today. It runs good.
Tell us about
all my vehicles have names. You know, I don't. You guys probably haven't seen my little red Honda, and her name's Wanda. So I didn't have a name for this truck yet. I bought it. A guy came into work when I was down at the body shop, and he says, "Hey, you're interested in an old Dodge truck?" I said, "Yeah." I had a '71 Chevy pickup truck at the time, but the cam had gone flat in it, and I was like, I really don't want to screw around rebuilding it. And a guy offered me a crazy amount of money for it, so I took it and I bought this. $400. He says it leaks a little oil. So I went over and looked at it, fired it up. It shot a stream of oil out. Oh yeah, I'll get to this here in a second. It shot a stream of oil out straight down from the oil filter adapter on the side of the block, about the diameter of a pencil, and at 40 psi. I mean, it just shot it down.
Oh, wow.
And me and my buddy Weston, I went back to my house. I got all the waste oil I had, like 5-quart jugs of waste oil. I said, we're going to get this thing home tonight. And it's probably 4 miles from where I bought it to my house. And we painted a solid stripe of oil for 4 miles with this. I pulled over 3 times to top it off. But it got home, and it was actually a pretty decent truck. It doesn't have much as far as upholstery. I mean, you sit on the springs for the seat.
Yeah.
It's a 318, 727. The motor and transmission are as solid as they come. The original 8 3/4 is long gone. They put a 9 1/4 in it with a 355 sure grip. The guy was hauling his motorcycle out to Arizona, and the rear end locked up.
Oh.
The local salvage yard didn't have an 8 3/4, but they did have a 9 1/4 with the same gear, and this one has a sure grip in it.
Yeah.
For some odd reason, it has one Summers Brothers alloy axle in it.
Really?
Go figure.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I would never have expected to find that in it.
Well, I pulled the wheel off and I went, wait a minute. That's not a stock axle.
How long has it been since you had Summers Brothers axles? This is done a long time ago.
I know who has all their tooling now.
Oh, is that? Really?
Yep. Neyland Parks Racing Enterprises down in Birmingham, Kansas, about 45 minutes from here. They're building racing axles. They do full floating axles for dragsters and funny cars and comp eliminator cars and stuff like that. But yeah, Scott and Frank are great guys, and I go down and visit them on occasion, and it's just amazing the stuff they do down there. Anyway, so I brought this old truck to work to kind of show it off to my coworkers. So my friend Michelle says, pardon my French, John. She goes, that's sketchy as fuck. I said, that's the name, sketchy. That truck is going to be sketchy.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, that truck is sketchy. But anyway.
It is indeed. And I don't know how Dakota gets a 700 out of the front half of 650 and the back half of 750 on his carburetor, but we'll go with that.
Hold on a second. Let me read that. I've got a 700 double pumper on my daily driver Trans Am. Front half is a 650. Rear half is a 750. Now, I've heard of split dominators. I've seen them. I've never seen a split 4150. Have you, John?
No.
Okay. So, Dakota, I'm calling BS. We're going to put you in timeout.
I called Bravo Sierra on that 5 minutes ago. So tell us how you got that, Dakota. We'd like to know. The Empire of Rust is in the house. Bad Tree Blake is here. Howdy, Blake.
Bad Tree. Oh, you guys have the greatest stickers at the No Name Nationals. I've got them all put up on my air compressor. Thanks, guys.
The Bad Tree guys are all kind of fun. What can I say?
Anyway, so hey, go back to that picture of Sketchy. That one right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was on my way home, crossing 45th Street on Adams, and I got the right of way. I'm going straight through the intersection, and a fella coming the other direction turns right in front of me and smashes into the driver's side front wheel, breaks the wheel, bends the I-beam, bent the fender, bent the door, ruined the grill. I was able to hammer the front bumper out, but yeah, this guy, no habla inglés, no insurance. What do? Cops show up. Yeah, well, we really can't do much. Really? Really?
You could do a lot if I was the one at fault.
Huh?
You could do a lot if you or I were the one at fault.
Right. Anyway, yeah. Being a responsible person does not always get you where you want to be.
No.
Yeah, that's the exception to the rule. Oh, yeah, there's the 904 out of Georgia. And, that was my third 904 build ever. So I was, I've done several 727s. They're just basically a 727 in half scale. It's not that bad. Yep, I cleaned her all up inside and out and put everything new in it. I got one of the master kits from AHRA Red and put it all together. And they didn't have a front band for it, so I had to put I can't remember the brand on the front band. But yeah, they were on back order. And I went down to a local transmission shop, Smith Brothers, and they said, oh, here you go. And yeah, the thing worked great, shifted fantastic. I didn't put a shift kit in or anything. I just put it right back together stock. But I blocked the accumulator. That's the only thing I did.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody ever puts that back, but what is the story on this car?
Okay. So back in 1993, we had a 19. This is back when I was still married, and my wife at the time, Laura. We had a 1972 Chrysler New Yorker Brougham. Okay, and the New Yorker had a nitrous system on it, and it was an absolute blast to drive. On the motor, it would go 16 flat in the quarter mile. Okay, the New Yorker on the sauce would run 1360s. We're talking an 18 and a half foot long car. So we were headed to, I wasn't announcing yet. Okay, this was 92, 93. I didn't start announcing until 94. But we went to a Mopar race in Topeka. It was all Mopar deal. And I had my Roadrunner and had the Chrysler there. And I was having... Okay, Dakota, I'll get back with you. Yeah,
do us a video on it.
Yeah, I want to say no.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay, if you have a Holley 700 double pumper, that's fine. I agree with you. I have a 700 double pumper in the garage. I agree with you. But trying to mix and match between the two CFM ratings in the same carburetor, that's where the BS meter goes.
Yeah, you just want to see a video of it. It'd be different and neat.
So anyway, they had a race in Kansas City, and I took the Roadrunner home. And Laura says, "Let's go to Kansas City. Let's go race," because that was later that evening. I'm like, okay. She goes, "But I want to drive." I said, "Oh, you want?" drive to the track? She goes, no, I want to race when we get there. Really? So we load up in the Chrysler New Yorker, and this thing was, it was a monster bracket car. This thing was awesome. She goes down there, and she enters the trophy category that night and runners up in a 72 Chrysler New Yorker, okay? She's got her second place trophy, and she's just ear-to-ear smiles. Love it. First time ever on a track, she gets second place in her class.
Love it.
So we go to her high school reunion, and she's talking with a gal friend of hers that she used to ride back and forth to school with. And Laura asked her, she goes, what'd you ever do with that old car? She goes, oh, it's still sitting out behind my folks' barn. And I said, what kind of car? She goes, oh, it's a 62 Valiant. And I'm like, really? And she goes, yeah. I said, two-door or four-door? Oh, it's a two-door. I said, what kind of shape's it in? Oh, it's been sitting in the mud for a long, long time. My dad wants somebody just to come haul it off. Really? Okay. So I made arrangements with my friends Kevin and Ken, and we went and picked this thing up the next weekend, and her dad was happy to have it gone. And we got back to the house, and Laura decided she wanted a race car. So she and I built a race car, and it was originally a Valiant Signet 200, which is the top of the line. Came with the aluminum slant 6 in it, push button 904, 7 1/4 rear axle, which spindly little thing. My original intent was to put a low deck big block in this thing, a B motor, like a 400, until I got to measuring. And I'm like, we're better off with a small block. And had to do extensive modifications to the transmission tunnel to clear the 727 because these cars were originally designed around a 904. They had no intent of putting a 727 in these things. So lot of altering of the transmission tunnel. I had to, they didn't offer V8s in the A body until 1963, I believe it was, with the 273. It's a V200 Signet. And so the center link on those things was just straight across. It had no recess for the oil pan. So I had to take it to work and modify the center link, made a jig up to hold it in place and everything while I cut the center out and put a drop section in out of a B body and welded it all back together so the motor would fit the original engine in it. In fact, the one you see in the picture here, where it's just almost got the left front wheel off the tire, is a 150,000 mile engine out of a 1979 Plymouth extended passenger van. You know, one of the big 15 passenger, 18 passenger vans. The same one I got the drive shaft Demon in. So the motor is wore out and won't run. The guy who sold me the whole van said, yeah, if you squirt gas down the intake, it'll fire right off, but it won't stay running. Come to find out, the fuel pump eccentric on the cam had worn completely off. So, okay, I put an electric fuel pump on it, stuffed it in this thing with a set of fender well headers. Those are the Hedman Hustler race headers for a 340 Barracuda. And they fit just barely. Those fit. But the motor, the first year we ran it, still had a stock 2-barrel on it. Well, I had a 2-barrel manifold, but I had a Holley 500 carburetor. And a set of headers. We hadn't even put a cam in it, hadn't put an aluminum intake, nothing on it. And it would run 1430s, 1440s, you know, just something for her to kind of break her teeth in, or not her teeth, to cut her teeth on. We narrowed an 8 3/4 out of a big Chrysler, like a New Yorker or a Dodge Monaco. It was a C-body rear end. And the thing still has 11-inch drum brakes on it. It's got all the brakes you'd ever want on the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Narrowed it up, put a set of aftermarket axles in it, and ran a 355 sure grip in it for until that thing blew up eventually. But yeah, raced it from 94 through 2002 when Laura and I got divorced. And she took it to a couple of races after that and ended up selling it to some guy in Ohio who built a gasser out of it. It's actually a really cool car now. But yeah, we raced all over the place with that. Uh, Topeka, Kansas City, Manhattan, Arc City, um, Scribner, Nebraska. They don't even have a racetrack there anymore. But Brainerd, Minnesota. I mean, we took it all the way up to Brainerd, all the way out to Denver, Colorado. But raced all over with that thing. And she never finished worse than fifth in the points at Heartland Park, Topeka. And it was in the top three in her class every year she raced at Kansas City International Raceway. And in 1998, she actually won a season points championship at Heartland Park. I was so proud of her, and you know, and I got to be on the microphone. I was actually announcing her when she won the championship that night.
How cool is that?
Oh man, I was doing cartwheels. it was so much fun. Yeah,
You know, speaking of announcing like that, it reminds me of something else you said a while back I wanted to ask you about. This is the perfect venue to do it. You said something you said in the chat that was going to be an unpopular opinion, and I was live and I agreed with you, and I'm sure it's just as unpopular no matter whether we agree or not. And that is about Dale Earnhardt.
oh,
Oh, here's fighting words, I know, but this is something I've kind of always thought.
Dale ruined NASCAR. Absolutely ruined NASCAR. He took it from a gentleman's sport to the World Wrestling Federation. He made an absolute sideshow out of it. Okay, let me describe Dale's driving style. And those of you who are NASCAR fans, especially older NASCAR fans who know and actually enjoyed and appreciated Dale, which I wasn't, Dale would lean on you. And if he didn't lean on you, he'd ram you. And you would wind up in the wall and out of his way. There's no way Dale Earnhardt could have ever driven an open wheel vehicle without ending up on top of his head. He couldn't have run a sprint car. He couldn't run Indy. If it had fenders on it, he would beat you up with it and beat you out with it. He used a race car like a baseball bat. That is how I feel about Dale Earnhardt. He ruined NASCAR. Once Dale opened that gateway, then everybody started doing it, and it just became a shit show. Pardon me, but it ruined NASCAR. You don't race, you don't draft, nobody does that anymore. It's all about, oh, let me nudge you out of the way. They say Rubbin's racing. No, that's stupid.
Well, I mean, that might be the dirt track way.
Hitting them.
I don't know.
Race clean. You don't see that happening with World of Outlaws, that is my favorite circle track racing anywhere. I love the 410 sprint cars with the wings. Oh, man. And those guys are precise in their driving. They know if they're not, they're going to end up over the wall. So, Dale absolutely ruined NASCAR, and I am not going to alter my opinion of him.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I tend to agree. I mean, I just remember as a kid, it's like, man, Richard Petty would sit here and work to win, and Earnhardt just wrecks him. I never could square that. But I'll tell you, it's very popular for it.
I'll tell you why he did so well in a Corvette. Even though they're fiberglass, Corvettes have fenders. He would not do well in an open wheel car. Now let's get back. Let's get back here to Dakota.
Yeah. He says he has measured his primaries and they're smaller, and so I just like to see a video on it. I just like to see the car. But I think it's sounds interesting to me.
Dale did not use a 700 double pumper. They'll use the 390 CFM Holly. Restrictor plate racing, baby.
Yeah, must have been Rusty fans. The chrome horn. Dale is to NASCAR what Caitlin Clark is to WNBA. There's a comment I never thought I'd highlight.
I got to think about that. You know, Caitlin relies on her skill to get things done.
I don't really think they equate.
No, I don't, because if Dale played basketball, he would be throwing elbows and yeah, he would foul out every game. Technical fouls.
So that's interesting. So Blue Grit says that he's being part of a team is what kept that from happening with the relay.
That probably has a lot of
Could
truth.
be. Interesting. So obviously it's amazing we're this deep into this live. We haven't gotten to this because we've gotten so much other interesting stuff. What compelled you to start calling racing?
That's a good story, and we've only got half an hour, so let me give you the cliff notes here. 1994, 1993. We were at the Heartland Park Awards banquet. They're giving away everybody's prizes and whatnot. And Bob Unkefer, the late great Bob Unkefer, very dear friend of mine, was the track announcer at Heartland Park. Well, Bob got the call from NHRA to come up and do the national event series, which meant on weekends that Bob was announcing at the national events, he wouldn't be available to be the track announcer at Heartland Park. So he said, first couple races, I'll be there. If anybody wants to come up and try your hand at the microphone, I'll give it to you, and we'll let you run with it for a little bit and see how you do. Now, the first race I was there, they turned the microphone over to several people, and it was either bland or they didn't talk at all. There was no knack, and Bob would take the microphone back after 2 or 3 minutes and say, hey, appreciate you coming up and give it a shot. Do we have anybody else who'd like to try? And at the second race of the season, there's a reason that I don't bracket race anymore. I have a penchant for red lights. So my wife's friend called me Ronnie Red Light. So that's I was driving my Demon at the time. Laura was driving her Valiant. And I would go out in first round. I'd buy back, and I'd be done, and basically just up in the stands and watching Laura race and win races. So I was listening to these people as I was up there in the stands watching cars go down the track, and I'm like, man, that's just, they are not Bob. They just, we're going to miss Bob. And Laura said, hey, go up and talk to Bob and see if he'll let you use the microphone for a little bit. I think you could do this. I said, really? She goes, yeah, you know everybody out here. You got a good voice. You talk well. Go do it. Okay, so I moseyed up there, and Bob's like, hi, Ron, what's going on? I said, let me try that microphone thing. So he sat down, and he showed me how the screen worked. We were using CompuLink at the time. And he showed me how the screen worked, where the incrementals came down on each side of the racetrack, where the driver's name and information and all that stuff was. And he says, it's not as important what you say as what you don't say. So first and foremost, no foul language, no calling somebody a name for any reason. And if there's an accident on the track, just tell people, get off the track, clear everybody out of the way, and I'll let you know the condition of the driver when we find out from the officials. And so we went with it. And whereas everybody else had announced 2, 3, 5 minutes, I was on the microphone for 15 minutes. Bob's like, I'm going to go get a cheeseburger. You want anything to drink? I'm like, yeah, how about a Dr. Pepper? So Bob goes down to the concession stand, comes back with 2 cheeseburgers, a drink for him and my Dr. Pepper. He says, you just keep on going. I'm just going to sit here and enjoy the races for a while. And from that point forward, I became the track announcer at Heartland Park. I was there from 1994 through 2014. And then through anybody who follows Heartland Park knows that they had a debacle as far as track managers are concerned. And I kind of fell out of the loop with Heartland Park. So, but back in 95, I started announcing for Kansas City International Raceway for their weekly events, as well as the weekly events at Heartland Park. And it was nice. They didn't fold one racetrack on top of the other on weekends. They scheduled, around each other, so I could announce every weekend. And it was at Kansas City International Raceway that I met Rob Park, and Rob ended up becoming the NHRA Division 5 director for many, many years. Gosh, I think 25, maybe 30 years, Rob was an NHRA Division director. But so Rob turned me on to his buddy, Charlie Harmon, who was looking for an announcer for their new series, the Pro Edelbrock Fastest Streetcar Series, which was under the ProMedia umbrella, which also was the National Mustang Racers Association, NMRA. Rob gave Charlie my phone number. Pardon me, I've got some grinding grit in my eye. Gave Charlie my phone number, and I get a call from Charlie Harmon himself. Hey, buddy, how you doing? And I don't know if you've ever met Charlie. He's not a real big guy, but he's bigger than life. And this guy is just a blast to hang out with. He's everybody's friend. He's a wheeler dealer. He knows how to get things done, and he puts on a really good program. So he says, hey, I got this new deal coming up. It's a fast streetcar deal down in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Wanted to know if you'd be interested in coming and announcing for our series. I said, well, yeah, I might. I haven't been into the streetcar thing. I've been just doing bracket races, and at that time I'd done 6 national events already, divisional races, stuff like that. And I said, he says, if what Rob tells me is right, you'll fit right in. And he talks just like this. Okay, you'll fit right in. Okay. So, and he does talk with his hands too. I said, all right. Is there anybody else going to be up in the booth with me? He says, yeah. As a matter of fact, Dave McClellan's going to be there. Well, Dave is one of my all-time favorite drag racing announcers in the whole world. And I worked with him in Topeka at a couple of national events, worked with Steve Evans, his partner in crime, also in Topeka. And I said, all right, Dave McClellan's going to be there. I will be there. So that kicked off my traveling career with ProMedia and the NMCA, and did that clear through 2009. And I've announced with the ADRL. I've announced with, the Outlaw Drags down in Tulsa. We've got a couple of smaller tracks around here that I've announced at. It has been an absolute blast. And I sat down last night after we talked, John, and I counted all the different racetracks that I've announced at. 53 different tracks.
Wow.
It has been nothing short of amazing for me. I've enjoyed it. Now this year, the only thing I've got on my slate is the No Name Nationals. I'm working 6 days a week. I don't have time for any of this other stuff, so I'm going to take some time off, take some vacation, and spend it with all you guys down there.
It's going to be a blast. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be so much fun.
Now, I'm not saying that I won't do any more announcing at other tracks, but with Heartland Park closing, Wichita is, I don't know. Great Bend is still closed, but they are reopening after they get the track resurfaced. I've kind of run out of places to announce around here. They did open up Flying H, and I announced a few races for them last year, and that was fun. I look forward to getting back with them in the future if they'll have me back. But they shut down Manhattan, they shut down Lawrence, they shut down Scribner. We're losing racetracks, buddy. We're losing racetracks.
Wow is right. Blue Grit says we appreciate it. Colleen says we appreciate it. Casey says thank you. I agree. We're very fortunate to have Ron.
Wait a minute, Blue Grit, that's the one with the blue 66 Mustang, I think it is?
He is a 66 Mustang. He's the fella who he won the first timers bracket.
Yeah.
He was in the burnout competition, won the Ironman award, and he made it through the No Name 500.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Yeah, he and his daughter. It's awesome team there.
I think she knows as much about the car as he does.
They're impressive people, both of them.
Oh, man.
I very much look forward to having
both
them.
have it going on. That's a good team effort between her and her dad.
Junkyard D says, I need my Lambert's mug back, Ron. I don't even know what that's about. I think you stole it.
Oh, I didn't. I don't
Who knows? Who knows? So question, your announcer Mount Rushmore then, who would that be? So if you had to pick your 4 announcers, all-time announcers for motorsports, who would you say? And that's any motorsport.
For all motorsports?
All motorsports, your top 4 announcers, who would they be?
Top 4. Man.
And we'll just make it easy. You can exclude yourself if you want to, because we know Ron Ward's in a class of his own.
No, I'll be in the Flint Hills, not at Mount Rushmore. Favorite all-time announcer, Chris Economaki.
Okay.
ABC's Wide World of Sports.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He did everything from sprint cars to Indy cars to NASCAR to drag racing. He knew it like the back of his hand. Okay.
Yeah.
Number 2 is going to be a hard one. Because I rate them the same at Steve Evans and Dave McClellan as far as their professionals. Can I put them together as a team and call them one? Because really, they were best known together. But maybe we'll have like like Siamese twins. But yeah, there you go. He was the father of telejournalism. He also had the National Speed Sport News. My college roommate was subscribed to Speed Sport, and it showed up every week, and we read that cover to cover. Good stuff. So yeah, Chris Economaki. I'm going to give Dave McClellan the nod just because his delivery is so smooth. I mean, and the guy, if you handed him a sheet like a big sheet of announcements to go through for sponsors, he'd read the whole thing through, top to bottom, not make one mistake, and every bit of it you could put right on tape and use it for advertising for the rest of the event. He was absolutely spot on, perfect reading the ads. He was amazing. He also he raced himself. Steve did not. Dave did, and he could draw from a racer's standpoint, and to help relate to the crowd what these guys were actually thinking or what they were doing or, what kind of stuff was going on in the pits. He knew it. So number 2 going to be Dave McClellan. Number 3, and he's a recent addition to, well, as far as, the years go, Mr. Brian Loans. Brian is absolutely.
I can get behind that, yeah.
He's badass on a microphone and with people. He's one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet.
I would agree with all of that.
There is no sense of arrogance with Brian. He's always very outgoing, very accommodating. And I think his greatest skill is his ability to listen. He absorbs knowledge like a sponge. Just he shuts his mouth and he opens his ears and he listens, and he does it better than anybody I've ever seen as an announcer. I'm guilty of it. I want to talk. I want to tell you what's going on. Brian, in an interview, will sit there and listen, and he'll remember what that person said for years. It just great skill set. He's great on television. He's great, over the airwaves. He's got his own podcasts. Brian, definitely on the Mount Rushmore. Number 4. Brett Kepner,
Yeah, I like that.
an absolute, and not just drag racing. I've seen Brett do some. He's when he was doing some of the Diamond P stuff. We get into other competitions, but a walking encyclopedia of knowledge. And um, I had a we had a race in Chicago. It was the NMCA NMRA Super Bowl with street legal drag racing, and there was another announcer there who, when the heads up cars were done, he would just walk out of the tower, leave, and I'd pick up the microphone, do my thing, okay, I got it. I'll take care of everybody else. And I did. I Iron Man that. It was like 9 hours on the microphone.
Oh, wow.
And Hazley Hood, one of my favorite announcers as well. I don't know if you know Hazley. He's been fired by the NHRA more times than anybody else, and then rehired. But he's out of Clearwater, Florida. But he'd come up and spell me so I could take bathroom breaks and so on and so forth. Great guy and a wonderful announcer, but that was not his forte there at the event. He just knew that, hey, I'm an announcer. I know that I'd like to get something to eat or something to drink. So he'd come up and spell me. Well, Brett Kepner showed up because, Brett is just, what is it, an hour and a half from Chicago to St. Louis, where Brett lives in St. Louis. He came up to hang out with us. And we had a rain delay. We had like a 4-hour rain delay. Well, one of Brett's good buddies just happened to be working in the tech department at Route 66 Raceway, which is where we had the event. And that person just happened to be Animal Jim Fuhrer. And he says, hang on a second. Let me get a hold of Jim. We'll bring him up here out of tech. He's not doing anything down there in the rain anyway. And yes, Mike Joy, wonderful, great choice. So Brett and Animal Jim and myself spent a 4-hour rain delay in Chicago talking about everything from jet dragsters burning the front end off a vehicle to, to nitrous and crowds and whatnot. I owe Brett a solid, and thank you so much. He offered me a compliment. He says, keep doing what you're doing. You're better than anybody else out here doing this right now. And I'm like,
And that guy right there, he's really, if you know how Brett Kepner thinks and how smart he is and detailed he is, that meant something, him saying that too. He wouldn't just throw that out there.
That would have been in like 2006, 2007,
Yeah.
right in there. And it was a pleasure not only to meet him, but to sit and enjoy his company along with Jim. And then he came to, I think it was Cordova. Yeah, I know it was Cordova. He came to a couple events at Cordova. He'd come up to the tower and say, hi, Ron, how you doing? And didn't take the mic or anything. He was just there to enjoy the event. Mr. Dirt running an open comp. So, but yeah, and, he reaches out to me on Facebook Messenger occasionally just to make sure I'm doing all right and whatnot. But yeah, went from a good professional relationship with Brett to being pretty good buds. I gotta tell you, if he was to say, "Hey, Ron, come on over to the house and have dinner," I'd be there 5 hours later.
Well, if he's grilling ribs, I know you'd be there.
Oh man, I'm not picky.
I know, but I know you like your smoked meats.
I do. The list of things that I won't eat is much smaller than the list of things that I will eat. Number one on the list, I'm sorry, folks. I know there's people out there who enjoy these snotty looking things. I don't eat oysters.
Ooh.
Yeah.
No.
I can't.
No.
Number two on my list, wax beans. Ooh, no wax beans. Can't do that. And I haven't tried escargot. I'm not going to say I won't eat it, but I haven't tried it. But so that's everything else. I'm sorry. One other thing I won't eat. and I've tried it 3 separate times, 3 separate recipes, 3 separate cooks. Okay, menudo, can't do it. No, can't do it.
So we know what not to have at the cookout this year at No Name Nationals.
Right. Don't bring any menudo. I don't care if it is your mom's secret recipe and you love it. No, I won't eat it.
We got an honorable mention for Bud Lindeman here, who's the Gordon Soley of motorsports announcing. Old car and track Bud Lindeman. And Dakota asks, how about Waltrip? And I will just tell you, he was my father's absolute least favorite announcer ever, and probably mine too. Darrell Waltrip, the driver, I thought was vastly better than Darrell Waltrip, the announcer, but that's just an opinion.
I concur.
I thought he was a horrible announcer, but that's just me, you know. I got to tell you though, I was coming to the same opinion very early on when was it which one of the Pedregon brothers was in the booth with NHRA when they first went to Fox? Was it
It was Cruz.
Was it Cruz? Okay. His first 2 outings in the booth were terrible. And I thought, man, this is the worst. But I got to tell you, he got a whole lot better. So I'll give him credit for that. He did. He settled down and got a lot better, found his groove. But as I was thinking, in the first couple races, it was rough. And their coverage was rough, too. They hadn't figured out how to do video coverage of drag racing either. ESPN had it down. In Fox's first year, they were all over the place for cameras in weird places. And it's quite a mess the first few races whenever Fox took it over. But
oh, hey, I need to give a shout out here. Tony's Hot Rod Garage. That, you guys, Tony, you make amazing hats. I love this thing. I wear it all over town. I get compliments all the time. So nice work, buddy.
oh, Tony does nice. Tony made the sweatshirt I'm wearing. He does good work exclusively. I've never seen any product come out of Tony's shop that wasn't. Not just saying that because any of you guys that have any of his stuff, I'm sure will back me on that.
Hey, let me go back to the announcing thing for just a little bit. There are 2 people that I absolutely have to thank for this road that I've found myself on as far as announcing is concerned. And I've already talked about Bob Unkefer. He was my mentor. He was the one that brought me along. The second would be Bruce Kamada, who was the announcer at Denver at Vandermeer Speedway. Took me under his wing when I got to the divisional level. Showed me the ropes there. Yeah, Bob couldn't always be there, but it would be Bruce and me on the microphone until Bruce kind of took over the administrative duties in the tower and just said, "Here, Ron, go." And I would just Iron Man that too, you know, sometimes 7 in the morning until 10 at night, just knocking it out. And, you know, I made so many friends with racers and crew members and track personnel. There are so many awesome people involved in motorsports racing and specifically drag racing. You know, that's what I do, but it's a big family. It really is. And, you know, people, oh, you must be hungry. And they bring up plates of food. I'm like, oh yeah, now we're talking. But I have met announcers from all over the country. And each one has that little nuance that I kind of pick up on, that little specifics here and there, you know, and a different style here or there, whatever. And it's like, that's a nice twist, you know. Everybody's got something different to offer. Of all the people, Bob Fry, I loved sitting down and announcing like a couple rounds of Super Street with Bob Fry. Oh, another walking cornucopia of knowledge.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. And, you know, Johnny Moto, another guy. Everybody knew he was good at what he did in the tower with the audio and video. But did you know he can announce? And the guy can also sing. He can sing. I mean, belt it out. Chris Monahan, another guy who can sing. At Flying H for the Division 5 double divisional race last year, Chris a cappella sings the national anthem and killed it. Absolutely aced it. It was amazing. Yeah, I got to work with him, and I could go down a list of great people that I've announced with, but each one of them kind of rubbed off a little bit on me, and I'd pick up a little here and a little there. Probably the greatest compliment I had was at the double divisional last year, and people were telling me, "You sound just like Bob Unkerfer." I said, "Well, I'm not trying to sound just like Bob, but I announced probably 100 races with him, and yeah, we're gonna have some similarities." And this is just after Bob had passed away. People were coming up, tears in their eyes, saying, thank you for paying tribute to Bob, and thank you for being here doing this race." And that great man, did great work, and I just loved my time with him.
Is there any kind of announcing that you haven't done that you'd like to try your hand at, or you think would be fun to do? And it could be motorsports or something else.
Well, I have announced BMX races, bicycle motocross.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that. I've done tractor pulls. I've done mud runs, circle track, probably sprint cars. I'd like to announce sprint cars. I love them. Absolutely love them. For those of you who have not experienced World of Outlaws, do it. Yeah, you will not be dissatisfied. It's so much action. God, and the noise. God, they sound so good. Well, John, I'm sorry. I have talked and talked and talked. We got like 3 minutes left.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions that have come up?
Does anybody have anything? I'm watching in the chat. I do have one of these crazy questions I kind of like to ask occasionally.
Sure.
$1 million, just to say a large sum of endless money falls from the sky. What does Ron Ward do with it?
I'm gonna build a shop.
Where do you live, or are you moving first?
No, where I live. I'm gonna put a big shop out back.
You gonna buy up some of the neighborhood, or just?
No, I'm not. I'm not gonna do it to repair cars. I'm gonna do it to build cars. I'll get a tubing bender. I'll get a bead roller. I'll get a shear. Press brake. I want to fabricate and do that. I love doing it anyway, John. And I'm doing it right now with garden variety backyard, shade tree tools. I'd really like to put together something really nice. And me and my buddies get together and we'll just knock out a cool street rod or a hot rod or a monster truck, whatever.
If Dakota had $1 million, he would definitely buy a fully functional radio for my car.
Or maybe more than half a carburetor.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe even a pair of socks without holes in them, too. Dakota's about as cheap as I am.
Well, John, I want to reach out and thank everybody who tuned in.
Indeed.
Here on the live. And, of course, there's a couple of guys who messaged me earlier and said, "Hey, I can't watch it tonight. I'll have to catch it, tomorrow and replay it." But thank you so much. And to the No Name Nationals faithful, I'm looking forward to seeing you all in September. Bring smiles and laughs, and let's have another good time.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody who came out in the chat. And I know that about 50% of my viewers will listen to it on replay. People listen to it podcast style while they drive to work and so forth. And I will tell you that this is definitely one to tune into later. This one is a lot of fun. So we want to have you back on sometime for sure. We don't want to lean on Ron too much and take up too many of his evenings or whatnot, but I thought I would ask him to come out for this. It'd be a lot of fun for you guys. You guys have any questions or anything for Ron before we call it a weekend? Mrs. One-Eyed Cat says we are all family now. Indeed.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Lots of people looking forward to coming out. Colleen sends hearts. Dakota says my carburetor exists. I promise. Blue Grit says we'll see you in September. And Johnny C says good show and good night. And Johnny C, with that, you'll get the last comment. Want to thank everybody for coming out. Make sure to tune in to the Tech Talk Live on Wednesdays on the American Hot Rod Association channel with Dallas and Professor P. And we're going to be having more lives of this nature with folks from our community doing more of an interview and career style overview live like this. Look for more of these in the near future on this channel on Fridays. And I will see you guys again next Friday, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. And with that, you guys have a great weekend and good night.